Hi, it's Ruben Abramov. Today is Tisha B'Av. Slowly said, the 9th of Av. Tisha is Tesha, and Av is the Babylonian name for the month. It's actually the 11th month on the Hebrew calendar. Yes, do you hear? The 9th day of the 11th month. It is the spiritual 9/11 of the Jewish people. What's the big deal? I'll tell you. Way back, 3,000 years ago, in the time of King David, it was decreed that his son Shlomo was going to build the Beit HaMikdash, the holy temple, the finest, most beautiful temple in the world. And Shlomo built it, and there it stood for 410 years. However, towards the end, God began to get fed up. He saw people were committing idolatry, adultery, murder, and even worse than those 3 cardinal sins, 10 commandments. They were bribing the judges. And this means that you couldn't get a fair shake in a trial in court if you didn't have any money to bribe the judges. So everything was crooked. So God says, it's time to settle the score. So now, let's look at the history of this. Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, was a Navi, was a prophet. Remember, in those days, there were kings, Melachim, there was Kohanim and Leviim, and they did the worshipping in the temple. And then there were these men, messengers of God, who God spoke to them, and they would speak to the people, castigating, warning, begging, requesting. Yirmiyahu, if you just look in what's in his name, Yarim Yahu. Hashem's name is Yud K, and Hu means Hashem is the one. Yarim Yahu is that God is going to lift. But look at who else. You had Yeshayahu, you had Chizkiyahu, a lot of Yahoos. So the website even, Yahoo, means literally in Hebrew, God is the one, is the God. Not Asherah, not Baal, not Molech. The Jewish God is the real, authentic God. Okay, so this man, the reluctant Navi, the reluctant prophet, is getting messages from God. What? While in the city of Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar had marched upon from Babylonia. Nebuchadnezzar, what's the meaning of his name? Nabu was the deity's name. Chad meant the shield, and Netzar was his personal name. So his name meant that the god Nabu was my shield. What does he decide? Nebuchadnezzar says, I want what the Jews have. I'm going to march on to Jerusalem, and I'm going to surround the place. And if you think about it, Nebuchadnezzar has touched upon the Jewish calendar on 4 dates. No other man has more dates on a Jewish calendar than the king Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonians. The first one is Asara B'Teves, the 10th of Teves. That is when he surrounded the city. His intention was to starve the people. Why? Why don't you just go in and kill everybody? He didn't have enough soldiers. His tactics was such that I'm going to surround and starve them. And then that would take care of 1/3 of the people. Then, on this date of Asara B'Teves, he would have infighting. People would say, surrender to the Babylonians. And people would fight. No, we're Israelis. Don't surrender. We have to fight, even to the death. So another 1/3 killed themselves off. Then it was a walled city. So with famine comes disease. So most of the people, by the time this 1.5 years gets elapsed, a lot of people are sickly, dead, they're gone. So now, 1.5 years later, Shivasa B'Tammuz, after starving, sieging, surrounding, punishing the Israelite, the Jewish people, the Yehudim of Yerushalayim, he busts in the walls of the city of Jerusalem on Shivasa B'Tammuz. the 17th of Tammuz, a Babylonian name. Next, for 3 weeks, he goes from door to door seeking the intelligentsia, the royal administration, all the kings and all his men. He's seeking them. He even finds Daniel, and he exiles the Jewish people. When? On Tisha B'Av, on the 9th of Av, he burns down the Beit HaMikdash. What is Yirmiyahu saying to the king? I told you, I warned you. I prophetically wrote the book of Eicha. Yes, Yirmiyahu not only wrote the book of Eicha, Lamentations, like, how did this happen to us? He also wrote his own book, Yirmiyahu, with the help of Baruch Yahu ben Neriah, Baruch the scribe, and also he wrote the book of Kings, Melachim. So he's penned 3 books. Eicha was written prophetically. He wrote it well before the destruction of the temple. He had his scribe read it, and then even take it to the king, Yehoiakim. And what happened? The king, it was that time of year where he was in the palace of the king, but the winter palace, and he had his fireplace burning, and in comes Baruch, and he reads to the king the first 3 psukim of Eicha. Come on! Doesn't get to the 4th pasuk. What happens? The king takes out his blade, his knife, and cuts the Megillah, the scroll of Eicha, to shmithereens, to bits, and then he throws it into the fire, like, hogwash, this is garbage. The city of Jerusalem is going to be destroyed and emptied out and burned? Can't happen. God is going to protect us. Well, guess what? That day that Yirmiyahu feared came, and the temple was destroyed, and the people were exiled back to Babylonia. We even say it in one of our prakim of Tehillim, Kuf Lamed Zayin, Al Naharos Bavel, Sham Yashavnu, V'Sham Bachinu. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and there we cried. Oy, mehayalanu, oh boy, did we have it good, and now look at us. We have to hang up our musical instruments, we don't want to play anymore, there's no joy, there's no simcha outside of Yerushalayim. By the way, if you look in the book of Kings, Melachim, it talks about how Nebuchadnezzar and his general, Nebuzadran, Nabu again, Zadran, torch the city. How do you burn stone? You've been to Jerusalem, it's made out of stone. You put heat to it. If you take bushes and you light them on fire and you throw them against the wall the from the heat the stone is very brittle and it crumbles. So he burns down the city. It's written in Yirmiyahu. We do not read very much from Melachim on Tisha B'Av, nor do we read much similar story, similar text, same person wrote it, in the book of Yirmiyahu. Now, what else do we have? A 4th fast day in this 1.5-year cycle, Gedaliah. That's the man that Nebuchadnezzar put in place to be the governor over the remnant of the people that he didn't choose to exile. These people were simple folk, farmers, and guess what happens to him? Because it's a 4th day of fasting. He was killed by us, our own people, murdered him. Why? Because it was said he's not from the Davidic dynasty. He's not supposed to rule the Jews, the king. He's not a king. And who else teamed up with him and collaborated him and murdered him? Was Baalis, Melech Ammon. Why? He was to the east, on the other side of the Jordan River. Guess what? Baalis was afraid that Nebuchadnezzar marched into Jerusalem and would continue going eastward to Jericho and cross the river of Jordan and march upon Ammon. It's Amman today. But he was afraid he was next. So they killed Gedaliah. So, why are we so sad? Today, God forbid, if a shul burns down, you got 99 other places to go. Back in those days, there was one temple, one place to worship God. You would come there 3 times a year. This is before Sidurim, before Minyanim, in the time of the first temple. And this is where you would go to thank God on the holidays of Chag HaAviv, Chag HaKatzir, and Chag HaAsif. Those were the 3 agricultural holidays that you would go up and visit the Beit HaMikdash. But guess what? There was no more Beit HaMikdash. He burned it down, Nebuchadnezzar. We have no place to worship. Yud Kei Vav Kei. We're in a national religious paralysis. We're out in Babylonia. And what happens is Yechezkel and Zechariah say, V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol ha'aretz. You can worship God from wherever you are. But the great sadness, at every wedding we remember it by breaking the glass, and these 3 weeks that we're sad, is that we lost the one place that was God's footstool in the city of Jerusalem. And that great era came to an end. We, the Jewish people, had lived in the land of Israel, in the city of Jerusalem, with the Beit HaMikdash. To one side with the Kohanim, the other side with Leviim singing and playing musical instruments. There was 613 mitzvot. Today there's only about 200. People would go up to the Beit HaMikdash for Shalosh Regalim. It was a spectacular time. We were firing on all pistons. Today, what do we have left? A Sidur, which is somewhat like a stenographer's notes of what happened, of the sacrifices and the song. And we have synagogues that are just little replicated, little rectangular places to remind us, and they're always pointed towards Jerusalem where the Beit HaMikdash was. So hopefully, sometime real soon, this will go from being the saddest day of the year, of this loss for over 2,000 years, to that, guess what? That process has begun. We have the land of Israel back. We have the city of Jerusalem back. Hopefully peace will come soon, and we'll have the great temple back. We'll all worship, sing, and dance, and be connected to the Borei Olam, to the creator of the world, the source of all goodness and the source of all pleasure. This is the story of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, and why it is so sad for us. We've been waiting and waiting. Hopefully, the time will come soon where we'll rebuild.